The Human Diplomat. The Galactic Assembly, a vast space station orbiting the neutral planet of Taraxia, buzzed with activity as representatives from countless civilizations converged for the annual summit. Among them was Zora Novak, the newly appointed human diplomat. Zara strode through the bustling corridors, her dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail and her gray eyes taking in the diverse array of alien species around her. As one of the few human representatives, she knew her presence garnered curiosity and speculation. The assembly hall was a grand amphitheater, with tiered seating arranged in a semicircle around the central podium. Zara took her seat in the human delegation's booth, nodding politely to the Ilori ambassador on her left and the Corv delegate on her right. As the session began, tensions quickly rose between the Corv Empire and the Ilori Federation. The two galactic superpowers had been locked in a Cold War for decades, and their animosity was palpable. Emperor Dravok of the Corv took to the podium, his deep red scales glistening under the assembly hall's lights. "The Ilori have violated our borders for the last time," he declared, his voice booming. "We demand retribution." The Ilori ambassador, a slender being with shimmering silver skin, stood to respond. "We have done no such thing," they countered. "The Corv are lying to justify their own aggressive expansionism." Murmurs rippled through the assembly hall as the accusations flew back and forth. Zara leaned forward, her brow furrowed in concentration. She knew that a war between the Corv and the Ilori could destabilize the entire galaxy, an unexpected challenge. As the heated debate continued, Emperor Dravok turned to face the Ilori delegation. "Words are cheap," he snarled. "If the Ilori truly believe in their innocence, let them prove it through the ancient Right of Champions." A hush fell over the assembly hall. The Right of Champions was an archaic tradition, rarely invoked in modern times. It involved each side selecting a champion to compete in a series of trials, with the victor's civilization being deemed in the right. The Ilori ambassador hesitated, clearly taken aback by the challenge. But before they could respond, Zara stood up. "I will champion the cause of peace," she declared, her voice ringing out clearly in the silent hall. All eyes turned to the human diplomat in surprise. Emperor Dravok regarded her with a mix of amusement and disdain. "You would dare to stand against the might of the Corv Empire, human?" he scoffed. Zara met his gaze unflinchingly. "I stand for what is right," she replied, "and I will not allow this conflict to escalate further." The Emperor's eyes narrowed. "Very well," he said. "Then you shall face my chosen champion, Drogath, the undefeated." At his words, a hulking figure emerged from the Corv delegation. Drogath was a massive reptilian warrior, his scales a mottled green and his eyes a piercing yellow. He towered over Zara, his muscles rippling beneath his battle-scarred hide. Zara swallowed hard but refused to show fear. She knew that the fate of the galaxy might very well rest on her shoulders. The trials begin. The first trial was one of mental acuity, a complex puzzle that required both intelligence and creativity to solve. Zara and Drogath were each given an identical set of holographic components and tasked with constructing a functional device. As the timer began, Zara examined the pieces before her mind racing. She had always excelled at problem-solving, and she quickly began to see patterns and connections. Drogath, on the other hand, seemed to be relying on brute force, trying to jam the components together with growing frustration. His yellow eyes flashed with anger as he watched Zora's steady progress. With just seconds to spare, Zora slotted the final piece into place, and her device hummed to life. The judges declared her the winner of the first trial, much to Drogath's chagrin. The second trial was a test of physical endurance, a grueling obstacle course that pushed the limits of strength and agility. Zara knew she was at a disadvantage against Drogath's raw power, but she relied on her quick reflexes and strategic thinking to navigate the course. As they raced through the twisting tunnels and over the treacherous pits, Zara managed to stay just ahead of Drogath. But in the final stretch, the Corv warrior put on a burst of speed. his massive form barreling toward the finish line. Zara pushed herself harder than she ever had before, drawing on every ounce of determination and grit. She leaped across the final chasm just as Drogoth's clawed hand swiped at her heels, landing safely on the other side, a mere heartbeat before him. The judges conferred and declared the trial a draw. Drogoth's frustration was evident in the deep growl that rumbled in his throat, while Zara fought to catch her breath, her body trembling with exhaustion. The final showdown. The final trial was shrouded in secrecy, the details known only to the judges. Zara and Drogoth were led to a large, empty chamber and told to wait for further instructions. As they stood in tense silence, a holographic figure materialized before them. It was a small alien child, cowering in fear. "Please help me," the child whimpered, their large eyes wide with terror. Drogoth stepped forward, his claws flexing. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded. The judges' voices echoed through the chamber. "This is a test of compassion and empathy," they intoned. "The true measure of a champion." Zara approached the child slowly, kneeling down to their level. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're safe now." The child looked at her with hesitation, then reached out a trembling hand. Zara took it gently, offering a reassuring smile. Drogoth watched the exchange with a mix of confusion and disgust. "This is a waste of time," he growled. "We should be fighting, not coddling weak creatures." Zara stood up, still holding the child's hand. "Compassion is not weakness," she said firmly. "It takes true strength to show kindness and understanding, even to those who are different from us." As she spoke, the child's form began to shimmer and change, growing and morphing until it revealed itself to be a member of the judging panel. "Well said, Zara Novak of Earth," the judge declared. "You have shown the true qualities of a champion." Drogoth's eyes widened in shock and anger. "This was a trick," he roared. But the judges were unmoved. "The trial is concluded," they said. "Zara Novak has proven herself worthy." A new era. The assembly hall was in an uproar as the judges announced Zora's victory. The Ilori delegation cheered and applauded, while the Corv representatives looked on in sullen silence. Emperor Dravok's face was a mask of rage, but he could not dispute the outcome of the trials. "The Corv Empire will abide by the decision," he ground out through clenched teeth. Zara stood tall before the assembled delegates, her voice ringing with conviction. "Let this be a new beginning for us all," she said, "a chance to set aside our differences and work together for the good of the galaxy." In the days and weeks that followed, Zora's words began to take hold. The Ilori and the Corv agreed to negotiations, with Zora serving as a neutral mediator. Slowly but surely, the two civilizations began to find common ground, forging new alliances and trade agreements. As for Zara herself, she found herself the subject of galactic fame and admiration. She became a symbol of hope and unity, a shining example of the potential for peaceful cooperation between species. And though she remained humble in the face of her newfound status, Zara knew that her victory had been about more than just personal glory. It had been about proving that humanity had a place among the stars, and that even the smallest and most unassuming of creatures could make a difference when they stood up for what was right. For Zara, and for all of humanity, a new era had begun, an era of exploration, discovery, and endless possibility. And as she looked out at the vast expanse of the galaxy before her, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, united in the bonds of friendship and the indomitable spirit of the human race.